everyone. We're just going to get started in a minute. So just hang tight. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. Welcome to this conversation. Just checking. My name is Rebecca Johnston. I am one of the volunteer service officers at Catalyst Plus, and I will be moderating this panel discussion. Prior to getting started, first a couple of logistical items. This is a panel discussion and attendee microphones will be muted during the entire webinar session. If you have questions during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A box. We have scheduled time at the end to answer questions. The webinar will be recorded and posted on My Catalyst Plus and will also be shared with any advisor who will be doing future assignments in Africa, in Anglo Africa. So today is our 5th session in a series of advisor webinars that is focused on regional, cultural sensitivity. During each session, we spotlight one of the regions that we work in, and today we will talk about the countries that we work in Anglo Africa, which includes Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, and Tanzania. We started organizing these sessions to provide a more in-depth resource that specifically focuses on preparing to work with a partner with regards to their cultural context. Since each region and each country that we work in has distinct cultural norms and practices, we realize that learning and understanding how to navigate cultural differences affects the assignment outcome in the most positive way. Our in-country staff is highly experienced in this and provides valuable insights and guidance during each assignment. We therefore wanted to create this platform where they can share their knowledge together with highly experienced advisors. We have an incredible panel of speakers today consisting of 2 in-country staff members and 2 very experienced Catalyst Plus advisors. I will now give the mic to our panelists to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Doris Owusu. I'm the country representative for Ghana, and I've been working as the country representative since April 2021. Thank you.
My name is Jacqueline Johnson Mdeme, and I'm the country representative for Tanzania. I've joined Catalyst Plus in 2015, and I've been working with Catalyst Plus in different roles since then. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Barb Shackle-Hardman, a Catalyst advisor, and I've had the privilege of working in Tanzania and Kenya and a project in Ethiopia.
Hi, I'm Bruce Gilbert. I'm in St. John's, Newfoundland. I'm proud to be a Catalyst advisor. My resume is a little bit wild and woolly. I'm a freelance consultant in my daytime job, and I'm happy to be here.
Rebecca, your microphone is muted.
Sorry. Thank you so much. So we are going to take a look at today's agenda. So we're going to start with a welcome and speaker as we already did a welcome and speaker introduction. Then we will start with a question for the audience to start the discussion on cultural sensitivity. Then we will have some opening questions for the in-country team and Catalyst advisors. We will then go over a case study, and then finally a Q&A from the audience. If we have time, we'll also go over some brief conclusions. So yeah, I'm going to open up now. We have a Mentimeter. So if you can pull out your phone and scan the picture here, the QR code on the screen, we'd like to hear from you. So the question we're asking is what cultural sensitivity looks like to you in practice. So we'll take a few minutes and all right, so we already have some answers coming in. So the big one, of course, is respect. We have observe, understanding, adapting, humility, caring. These are all really great thoughts to start our discussion with. Oh, I see we have tolerance, listen.
Empathy.
Yeah, so I will stop sharing this. This is really great. Thank you everyone for responding. And now we're going to start. We'll start with the opening questions for the 4 panels. So we're going to start first with our in-country team, so Jacqueline and Doris. So the question is, trust and relationship building are key elements of successful assignments. What approaches are most effective for advisors to build trust with partners and communities in your region? Please share examples from your country.
Thank you, Rebecca. And hello, everyone. Rebecca, that's a very great question. So basing on the question, when it comes to Tanzania, and this is based on my experience and the knowledge of the local contents of my country, when it comes to trust and relationship building as the key factors for a successful assignment. For Tanzania, I would say that the key factors are on respect. And when it comes to respect, this can be on hierarchy in terms of leadership within organization, but respect for the culture norms and respect for the local knowledge and experiences. But again, another key factor is on consistency and reliability of an advisor. But we also have culture sensitivity and genuine partnership from the advisor's perspective. So here are approaches that I would recommend our advisors to take into consideration. And please do note, this is not only for the in-country assignments, but they also do apply for virtual assignments. It's just that some of these approaches might be more emphasized in country assignment because of the face-to-face and the physical interactions during the assignment implementation. But most of these approaches should be also taken into consideration for the virtual assignments delivery. So the first approach outcome is to active listening. So this could include effective consultation, communication, and consideration of the local language. So I know that we have the assignment application form, but sometimes some of our partners cannot really write down what are their expectations and challenges in the assignment application form. So in the early pre-assignment engagement is very important for advisor to actively listen to the partner before starting proposing solution or delivery technical expertise. So for example, if you're doing an assignment on gender policies, or if you're doing an assignment on agriculture. So just take time to listen, what are the challenges and the expectations. Second, I'll say respect for local knowledge and expertise. Yes, our partners acknowledge the expertise that our advisors are bringing in, but it's really good when you also acknowledge their local knowledge, expertise, and experience. Because to be honest, that's what it has brought them this far. So it's good to acknowledge what they had, before starting to integrate that with more sustainable solution based on partner expertise. And this is mostly on assignments on agriculture. There's some local knowledge that they've been used by farmers, especially smallholders farmers, for centuries. Another one is on reliability. An advisor who is consistent, who is willing to adapt, who is curious, and who follow through on feedbacks on agreed action really result to building trust and relationship with the partner. Another one is
Jacqueline, did we lose you?
Yeah, I think she has a power outage.
Yeah, that's another thing. Are you still there, Jacqueline?
yes. Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Yes, I had to switch on to another power mode. Apology for the interruption.
No
I believe
worries.
I was sharing on the building personal relationship before the formal assignment or the technical expertise part. So building personal relationship can be looking as taking interaction beyond formal meetings, but also participating in local spaces, having meals together with a partner. Again, what most people have shared, even in the question before on the culture, respect and humility, know that you need to be patient with the local customs and to understand and don't assume. In case of any confusion, you can ask the partner, you can ask the in-country team. They can always guide you rather than making you want assignments that involve the partner on co-create solution. So it's more facilitation and capacity development rather than dumping on external expertise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. That was great. Doris, I want to hand it over to you now.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. I think I would just be reiterating what Jackie has already shared. Ghana, as you know, happens in most countries, and in most of such relationships, trust is critical. And I think sometimes advisors would have to be intentional about building personal relationships with partners. It does help so that, you're able to understand the reality of the partner that you intend to support. I admire our advisors, and I'm always grateful that my partners will usually ask me, why would somebody travel all the way from Canada to Ghana just to come and support us? And because, as ICT, we value, that contribution of advisors, we pass that on to partners. And so we are always coaching our partners and nurturing them to be able to be receptive to the expertise that advisors bring on board. Having said that, it always helps when advisors are humble enough to, build genuine personal relationships with partners, not just focus on the technical and the hardcore part of the assignment. And I think also listening, listening is an art that nobody teaches. A lot of people listen to speak and respond, but they don't listen to hear. And, that usually does help to shape the way the relationship is going to go. If you meet a partner and all you want to do is just talk and talk without listening to the person's needs, sometimes it ends up creating issues. And then also having respect for what the person does. In Ghana, we basically work with women entrepreneurs, and some of these women are very strong and very entrepreneurial. They've been through the mill. In a lot of cases, they understand their businesses better than the advisor does. What they are looking for is somebody to act as a sounding board, to help them co-create solutions for their next level. So if you come in and all you want to do is just talk down and share, I saw this in Southeast Asia, I saw this in that place. And a lot of the times, some advisors tend to think that Africa is one country. As you move across Africa, you would understand the dynamics between East Africa, West Africa. Even within West Africa, Ghana is very different from Nigeria or Togo, Benin, or Cote d'Ivoire. So you have to be open-minded and, establish a rapport with a partner so that you can be able to co-create solutions that the partner can actually implement to help them scale their businesses. And I think, in all of this, what I usually would encourage advisors to do is to support a partner to think long term, because you also don't want to create a dependency. A lot of the time, advisors keep reassuring partners that I can help you do that, I can help you do that, knowing very well that this is a project and you're not going to be there forever. So what you want to do is to develop practical results that will help the partner to focus on long-term capacity strengthening instead of just providing a short-term gap. And this is something that you can help the partner think through. But I think overall, advisors do a really good job, but a combination of their technical expertise, some empathy, patience, and the consistency to build the strongest and most sustainable relationships does tend to create long-term sustainable assignments. And that's why, if you said you met Annie in the office yesterday, Annie has had virtual assignments and in person. And she always tells me she's been very lucky with the advisors she's had, because she's had very good relationships with them. And her recent visit to Canada for the CL conference was actually facilitated by an advisor. And she's giving me really great feedback. These are some of the sustainable relationships that we expect advisors to continue to build with partners, so that assignments can continue to be successful and Catalyste can be known for what it does best, which is creating value for the partners we work with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Like, these were amazing answers. I mean, just listening about both of you talking about respect, relationships, and of course listening is, I think, really important. And it seems so simple, but as Doris, you said, it's not in some cases. Like, you really need to work at it. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to move on now to our advisors, so Bruce and Barb. So their question is a little different. Basically, the question is, which attitudes or mindsets did you have to adapt in order to adhere to local cultural norms in Anglo African countries? So Bruce, I'll start with you. Before we start, as they mentioned, both Barb and Bruce have worked in combined Tanzania, Kenya, Ghana, and Ethiopia as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Rebecca. I'm starting my clock now. Okay, I just should preface my remarks by saying that my thoughts on this matter come from all my experience internationally in Anglo-African countries, including Namibia and South Africa and Malawi over the years, but mostly over the last few years with Catalyste. Our two in-country guests summed it up beautifully. Many of the things I intended to mention have been stated. They were clearly referenced. Many of my sort of personal adaptation stories would revolve around time. It's always an issue. Respect around education and age is something that emerged for me. I have little stories about some of these things, and different ways of working in the workplace, and different views of what a plan means, like how consistent one needs to be towards a plan that was made at some point in time. Most of my comments are also related to me and partner rep people, as opposed to the broader community. So first of all, in terms of, sometimes you don't need to adapt. Sometimes through listening, checking with your partner, dialogue, observation, you see things that are happening, and it's not always the case that one must change or adapt to a local cultural norm. It's really about identifying the difference and clarifying and talking with your partners about it. And I'll give you one example around people were shocked in Kenya when they found out near the end of my placement that I had a PhD. And they seemed kind of embarrassed that they hadn't been calling me doctor the whole time. And but now, from my vantage point, nobody calls me doctor in North America. No one seems to care about your education over here like they might care about it over there. So to put them at ease, it was like, okay, well, you can call me doctor if you want, or you can call me Bruce. And we were drinking Muratina under a tree, and so it just didn't seem to be a big deal. So I used my intuition just to make that issue not be an uncomfortable moment. So there's something about respect for education and position that comes with being a white man showing up in an Anglo African country, people bestowing a certain level of credibility on me that I don't really want. I just want to be their equal and talk to them about the project. Okay, so that's one little example. Another example, it depends on the amount of time you're in a place. And Catalyst has created a very unique situation for all of us. It's 2 weeks. So we can talk about trust and respect and tolerance. But oftentimes this has to be built. You can't just say, okay, we trust now and we respect now. We've all agreed to that. That's meaningless. That's just words. So we have a very special opportunity. We have 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, a little bit of virtual perhaps in advance. We have a small amount of time to get this right. And I mean, it all comes down to the things we know. Follow your intuition, be respectful. I try and be light and fun and playful as much as possible because it seems to put people at ease. I follow my nose. And my friend used to say, expect an empty parking lot. In a way, I always expect things to change rapidly, and I'm okay with that. So I can say more later on, but that's my minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Barb, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, well, thanks. And I'm going to reiterate a lot of what's already been said with some specific examples. So my Doris mentioned that not to make the assumption that all countries in Africa are the same, and even further with that, my experience has been primarily working with Maasai organizations. And what I observed was that even within that culture of Maasai, there is so much difference between the different communities. And so even when you go into an assignment working with a specific culture per se, that could be very different depending on the community. So again, just to reiterate that listening and that pre-work you can do to try and get as deep an understanding of your community, what their values are, what their traditions are, is really helpful in helping to plan through your assignment. And also, I think Jacqueline had mentioned about, the respect of the local knowledge. And that's one thing that I always try to make a point of. I'm a white woman from Western Canada. I don't know what a Maasai woman goes through on a daily basis. And so I'm really relying on the partner organization to bring their cultural expertise to the project. I can come with the expertise that I have, but I'm really relying, and we spend a lot of time talking about, so what do you think, will this work for you? And what is going to be the reception of your people if you did this, or your organization? So I really do rely a lot on their expertise and how is it going to work? Because I think in all of our assignments, the goal is to try to affect change. And so that's what I try to bring into each one of those. Just another point I wanted to make about that importance of hierarchy, and I've been caught on this a couple of times. And so what I've and pulling in a couple points that have already been made, the importance of that relationship building and the importance of food. Like most cultures, and even in North America, we spend a lot of time building relationships around dinner and meal times. And I think as professionals, we know that when we go to a training event or a conference, quite often the most valuable conversations we have are at coffee or lunchtime. And I think that's really important, and how to not underestimate how important that time is of spending time having lunch, having coffee, having tea with the hosts. And one thing that I've taken away, or what I've tried to start to do, is the importance of making sure that for that first couple of days of making sure that I'm sitting with the host. And again, as Bruce mentioned, we tend to have more flat organizations where, everybody tends to be equal. But I think in some of the, at least in the Maasai organizations, it is really important to pay respect to your host and to the person that has invited you. And so I always attempt to try to sit with the host for the first couple of meals. And then as the week goes on, try to move around to meet with and have meal with or tea with the other members of the organization. And that's where you uncover some of those other real juicy things that you can bring into your project to make sure that there's all of those perspectives are taken into account. And again, being humble when you make mistakes. And my background is in agriculture, and so I spend a lot of time talking to farmers. And in Western Canada, in Canada, the first thing that you do when you meet a farmer is you ask them about their farm. You ask them, how many acres do you have? How many cattle do you feed? That's how you build that relationship with the farmer in Canada. Well, and what I didn't realize is that, asking a Maasai person how many cattle they have is like asking how much money they have in their bank account. So what did I do the first 10 minutes I'd met my Maasai host was start talking about their operation and how many cattle they had. And they were very kind and they were very generous. And it wasn't till later on that I realized my mistake and apologized for being what would be considered rude in their culture. But I explained, in Canada, that's a very common question. So even though when you're go in with the best of intentions, sometimes you're going to make mistakes, and just acknowledging those again, I think brings to that relationship. So I think those were just some of the lessons that I've learned. Again, in 5 minutes, it's hard to capture all of them, but I think, again, we have excellent country hosts. They know their jobs, they know their communities, and I rely a lot on them when I go on assignment to help me. And they're so excellent at answering any questions I have, and even something that may seem minute, they always have the patience and the support to make sure that the assignments are successful. So rely on our country reps for their expertise. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much to all of you, Barb, Bruce, Doris, Jacqueline. So we're going to move on to our case study. So most of our advisors have extensive experience working in different countries and are achieving excellent results. That said, each context presents unique cultural and procedural dynamics that will require thoughtful adaptation. In this case study, we'd like to explore concrete examples of such scenarios and discuss practical strategies and best practices to work towards a smooth, respectful, and effective collaboration with the partner. So our case study is as follows. An advisor supported a partner organization in developing a gender policy. The organization's leadership and board were primarily male, with one female staff member in a junior role. During the assignment, the advisor adopted a directive approach, emphasizing their own perspectives on gender sensitivity. This approach limited the integration of the partner's input and created tension in the working relationship. So I'm going to open it up to our panelists to answer the question, what happened, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so I guess you mean what you mean,
Bruce.
what do you think happened, right? That's
yes.
really what. Okay, carry on.
Okay, so good thing is this is just a case study, but in reality, it doesn't happen really often in the field, which is good. It speaks on the kind of attitude our advisors have. So on this case, I would say the advisor went in and promote their own perspectives and recommendation based on their expertise. So there was no a participatory approach, and the advisor had positioned themselves, he or she, as an authority instead of a partner. So this is what I think really happened in this specific case study.
I think what I'd like to say is, in this case, the partner went in with a savior mindset, that they thought, the organization should run a certain way, made up of a certain category of people. And because they were not there, he was trying to save the situation. And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. You don't go into an environment and dictate what happens. And that's why, in a previous conversations that we've had, we've always talked about listening and observing to learn and being humble to accept that this is the way things are done in certain contexts, and that you can only make a recommendation, but you cannot force a situation to, happen the way you want it to be. Thank you.
And I'm going to add to that. I mean, and I had a similar situation where not the same, but it was similar, where I was working with an organization, and they were about, they were focused on women and youth, but it was predominantly male. And I think that, again, when you have those opportunities to have, eat with people, have tea with people, you have those one-on-one conversations. That's where you can uncover some of those underlying causes, because quite often, in those male, where there's primarily male and you've got a junior female, the junior female can give some really good insights about what's really or what their perspective on the situation. And then you're able to draw that in, and having those more informal conversations as opposed to having those conversations in a group setting. Because again, recognizing the respect, you don't want to come in and start criticizing the male leadership of the organization, but you want to still provide some examples or some suggestions to help them move forward. And being able to do that in more informal settings, sometimes you can have those conversations and respect the hierarchy, but still be able to provide some suggestions for moving forward. And that seemed to work in the one situation I had.
These are all really great answers, and I won't repeat them. Maybe a slightly different take on this is that, to be nice to the advisor for a moment. The advisor came in with an expertise mindset. I have expertise. They don't. They've asked me to come over. I got to deliver it. I got a short time frame. I got to ram this through. They may not like some of it, but I mean, the ends justify the means. I have to push because we could dance around these issues, but of course it never works. It never works because everybody says great job, and then we hear it all this time from people. I heard it myself with Catalyste. The manual that we were given at the end of our 2 weeks sits on the shelf and no one ever opened it again. So, in a way, it's all given away in the question. The advisor decided to adopt a directive approach to, I think it was to meet her interests or something. I mean, advice to the advisor: go slower, take your time, find out where they are, try and figure out like what you can do with the time you've got, because ramming the whole project through isn't going to work, but maybe you could get somewhere. Maybe you could get a step or two down the road. Like, for instance, in one of my own placements, I convinced the male owner of the manufacturing plant in Kenya that I think I convinced him, you got to get some women on your board. But I didn't just come in launching into that. I mean, that was one of the recommendations and the outputs of the 2 weeks of dialogue with him.
Okay, great. I'm wondering if I know there was mention, I believe it was Doris who mentioned about coming in as a sounding board, and like listening and working alongside the partner. And in this case scenario, that didn't really occur. We've talked a little bit about it here and there. I was wondering if we can talk a little bit more about, maybe especially for advisors who are new to coming and working in the region, or just new advisors in general. What are like some more tips or ways that they can make sure that they are listening, that they are working alongside, as opposed to coming in with an expertise mindset?
Well, I have a tip. I love your comments, Doris. I had it right in my notes: sounding board or mirror. I make it all. I don't dance around those words. I walk into the partner and say, we have 2 weeks together. I don't know much about what you're doing. I have some skills. You have some skills. It's a collaborative opportunity. Maybe we can do something together. I know we've got this list of things that Catalyst says we're supposed to do, and we're going to have to do that. But in the meantime, like, let's just get into a vibe where you can pitch ideas to me. What about this? And I'll tell you what I know, and I'll tell you when I don't think I know anything. Sounding board, mirror, I use those words. And then I drink Muratina with them. I try and put them at ease. I try and let them know that I'm not judging them. I'm not going to write a report about them. I'm only there. You have a resource for 2 weeks. I know you're really busy, and that's why the plan keeps changing, because you have stuff to do in your real day job and with your real family, but we can just do something good for 2 weeks. And that seems to have not failed me.
So something else I can add for the advisors, the in-country team, we're not just here to facilitate the logistics and the communications. So most of our briefing can be general, but if you encounter a very unique situation with a partner, we understand our partner better on a personal level and the local content. So please use us, let us know how we can help, if, especially in a very unique cases, and we'll be able to offer very valuable local content and tips and suggestions as well.
And I think the one tip that I would provide is to, it's been mentioned before, but slow down. I think we have a North American perspective sometimes of what success looks like. And I think the biggest successes that I've witnessed is when you can slow down and, again, not get so focused on your project plan that you don't have the opportunity to provide what it can be valuable. I'll give an example. I had just finished an assignment in Kenya, and we were doing some training, but the training was happening at a lodge where the participants were doing their day job as well as taking the training. So we had to arrange it so that we could work around their schedule and the guest schedule. So we had some downtime, and it was a simple question: is there anything else I can do while I'm here to help you with your work? And we ended up in the downtime between the training, we conducted 2 workshops on how to make bags for them to sell in their store. So it was totally off script. It was totally out of the project plan. But it's making them money, which is what the whole purpose of it was, is economic development. So even though we were there for training, we got the training completed, we were able to do the value add. And that's a mind shift I'm starting to have, is to, when I go into the organization, into the assignment, I've got the assignment that we've got to do, but I'm already starting to think about what are those value add things that we could do that may not be in the script, but are going to help that organization. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, is to make those organizations successful, whether it's a business, a NGO, or whatever. And sometimes we get so focused on, we've got to focus on that deliverable, because that's probably what we've done all our career, is you've got KPIs you have to meet and meet them regardless. And I think that's been the biggest mind shift as I've been working with Catalyste, is to just redefine what success looks like.
Can I just add one point? My discovery in my placements is that, whereas the assignment profiles are great and they're the thing we worked on, when you dig deeper and you have trust and people start being frank with you, you realize that the real problems of the organization aren't even on that piece of paper. They're bigger than that. They're adjacent to that. So in a way, I would often try and, is there a sweet spot between completing the assignment and helping the group with the things they really need? And they're not necessarily the same. Because as somebody said, you might not tell the country team what your real problem is when they're writing up the assignment profile. There could be other things going on. Anyway, I'll stop there.
I'm just checking the time. I do have one little quick question that I think it's something that really hasn't been mentioned, but might be good to bring up, is the importance of the work plan. So advisors always have to work with the partner to create a work plan. How does that help with relationship building with the partner? So I'd like to we just have a few minutes, but if someone can touch on that, I think that would be great for everyone to hear about.
I think I'd like to say that sometimes in between when the work plan is developed and when the advisor comes in country, a lot of things can change on the ground because we are not assuming that once the partner made a request, the organizations are not running. They are still running. And so sometimes there might be improvements or sometimes things have gotten worse from when they made a request. And so I think both advisors and partners have to be adaptable so that if the period between when the work plan was developed and particularly for in-person assignments and the advisors came in country, some changes have happened, then advisors will have to be adaptable enough to make that change and do the best they can within the time frame. But I think having said all this, one of the things that I also find can affect the quality of assignments is the expectations that some advisors may have. I can speak for Ghana. Ghana is a developing country. So sometimes beyond the capital, so let's say beyond Accra, there's infrastructure deficits in certain parts of the country. And sometimes that shock alone can affect, the advisors' ability to deliver. I've taken advisors to certain communities and all they saw was dirt road. And the transportation systems in those communities are not the best. And so it didn't matter how much orientation I had given to the advisor to lower the expectations, because as soon as you leave the capital Accra, things change. And you would find people living in certain circumstances that you may not be familiar with. And if you don't try and lower your standards, it can affect you as a person and also affect the delivery of the assignment. So as much as possible, I always try to visit some of these communities before the advisor comes in. And so then it gives me the right information. It puts me in a position to give the advisor the right information. But having said that, advisors should sometimes lower their expectations. I had an advisor who refused to come out of his hotel for a week because all he saw outside of the hotel was dirt. But that was the environment the partner was working in. It was practically a farming community. And, if you cannot help a partner develop a climate smart strategy from your hotel when you haven't been to the farm to see what you're doing. So that alone, even though it's not, directly related to this discussion, that can also impact on the quality of the expertise that the advisor can give, because of course, it's affecting their person. Thank you.
And I would just add to that, as I have kind of a love-hate relationship with project plans. I recognize, working for government, Catalyste has to report back to the government on the public funds that we're expending, and we have to show deliverables. And so I get that part. But at the same time, I think, as Doris mentioned, is a lot changes by the time that they put in an application and when you arrive. So just to have that flexibility, and again, just finding where the successes are and finding where you've moved forward, even if it isn't on the work plan. You can always find, I think, those. I haven't had a dud assignment yet. Like even the worst assignment has still shown results. So I think that, is credit to our country advisors that are in there getting the good projects. But I think, again, just have a bit of a plan. But again, just if you have to change it, change it. But
Hey, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm just seeing what the time is, and I do want to get to some of the questions from our advisors. So thank you so much for your answers. So I think the first one is actually for you, Jacqueline. Are there cultural differences between Tanzania and Zanzibar?
I would say yes. So first, I'll talk regarding our project implementation. So our project implementation is limited to the Tanzania mainland, We don't have partners or assignments in Zanzibar, but for the sake of the question, I would say yes. So one thing I wanted to say regarding culture, an advisor has to be very intentional because even the culture norm shifts based on the content. The urban, it's different, and the rurals, it's different. The gender roles differ from the mainland and Zanzibar, but also differ based on the coastal areas. The culture is different from the parts where people do mostly agriculture. So I would say yes, Zanzibar, because it was colonized by the Arabs. The majority of the community are Muslims, so the gender traditional roles are very strong, but again, on modest wearing. But when it comes to Tanzania, as I mentioned, the rural areas, the gender roles are also very strong and the modern dressing. But when it comes to the urban areas, things are really different. It's just like in Toronto and any other places, except in the government settings. So I would say yes. So it's good to be intentional on the content shift.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have another question. It's a little bit of a case study by the looks of it. In one assignment, I was collaborating with a partner virtually to develop a program to be delivered when I would be in country. The partner did not complete their part for a variety of reasons over the weeks. What advice would you provide for that advisor?
Well, Doris and I had an example of that last year, where we had a partner, and again, for whatever reason, wasn't able to commit, and so I think we basically called it and said we can't proceed until we have some additional engagement, and so I think we just made the call to put it on hold. And I think again, as an advisor, you kind of got to get a sense of when you think you're going to have success and when you're not going to have success. And I think in this case, because of the complexity of the project, I just didn't feel comfortable going into the country until I had some additional background. So, and Doris, I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but we just called it and put it on hold.
Yeah, I think you're right. And as much as possible, I think advisors should continue to rely on ICTs to, um, kind of chaperone the relationships between the partner and the advisor. Sometimes you find advisors go behind our backs and interact with partners directly until they hit a snag, and then they have to come back to us. So yeah, Bob, you're right. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to say real quickly that I had an example where it wasn't that they didn't do their part. It looked to me like somebody got somebody to get AI to do their part and sent me an elaborate proposal of a work plan that would take a consultant 6 months to roll out. And I took a risk and I just held my ground. And I said, well, I kept reminding the partner about the goals of the assignment. And I thought, I'm going and I'm going to get on the ground and see what's really happening. And it all went away. And it turned out to be a very productive assignment where we worked on the things that were important to them and Catalyste. And probably the assignment that was most focused on the objectives of all of the ones I've done, but it didn't look good in the beginning.
Okay, so I have another one that's basically asking about learning base set of languages, especially the country's official language. For example, in Kenya, and the official languages are Kiswahili and English, but in Kisumu, there is a local language. Is it really important to learn a bit of the local language before you arrive?
So I'll answer because for our case, our national language is Swahili. I would say it's not a must, but it does really help with relationship building to learn some basic, the greetings, hello, thank you. People feel very appreciated when a foreigner learns the basic language, and it's a great way to interact even with the local community and the stakeholders. So if you get some few basic phrases in Swahili, oh, they really appreciate, but majority of people speaks very basic English. You won't have a problem to interact, but it's good if you can learn some Swahili.
Just to add one other point, especially if you're doing training, is to take into consideration that translation time. And I got caught because in one session it was being translated from English to Swahili, Swahili to Maasai, and then back again. So it just, you have to be flexible on those timelines, because if you do have to add that extra step of translation, it does take a little bit more time too.
I'm just gonna, if anyone else has any other questions, you can type it in or you can raise your hand and we'll see if I can unmute you. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, I'm just taking a second to. Anna or Sabrina, do you see I can't see who's raising their hands. Are you able to allow them to, oh, here we go.
Yeah, I
Peter,
can see.
you go ahead. Peter, I think I unmuted you. Nope, you're muted, so I think you might have to unmute yourself if possible.
Oh, good morning.
Hello, sorry about that. You can go ahead.
Yeah, this is my first time of coming here, and my name is Peter Odion. I'm a Canadian and also a Nigerian citizen. I've been to a number of African countries, Ghana, South Africa, and traveled different parts of my country, traversing diverse religion and tribal background. And the issue of culture is a common denominator in any developmental process. But we tend to make one mistake trying to equate the age of a person with knowledge of culture. I had an issue with a particular community when I was just 40 years old, and the man I was interacting with was about 92 years old. At the end of the day, he concluded that I came to him that day not to ask the question, but rather he benefited from my wealth of historical knowledge. You discover that a lot of things going on in most of the developing countries, including Nigeria, they are not as a result of culture, uh, but rather people have lost sight or grip of certain historical imperatives. Take, for example, respect for women in traditional African societies. Women are highly respected. One of my ancestors as a woman was a warrior. She fought side by side with men. Queen Idia of Benin was a warrior. She fought so many wars. So there was no that discrimination on the basis of gender. And take the issue of access to land. A lot of traditional rulers, they just say that piece of land there belonged to the king. That is not history. If you trace deeply, you discover that his cultural interpretation is motivated by greed. So for us to have a very deep understanding, of the culture of the people we are interacting with, it is also necessary for us to know the history of the people. So that's just the little I want to chip in.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Does anyone want to add to that? Okay. I believe, Ben, you can unmute, but I also saw you asked a question. I will just, so Ben wrote, how do you sense in advance of the advisor showing up if the relationship and work will go well?
Okay. It's a tricky question, but an important one. So from my perspective, I would say, so I won't speak much from the partner side because most of the partner are very excited when they get an advisor that is going to come in and support them. So on the side of an advisor, mostly it's through observation because the in-country team are very engaged in the whole process from introductory meeting, the Zoom discussion pre-assignment, introductory meeting in the country, check-ins. So sometimes you can tell from the advisor side, is the advisor excited to learn about the partner, just to know about their names, the team, what they do. But honestly, most of the advisors are very positive and they get into assignment with a very positive mindset to do their very best to support our partners. And we offer more local content and advice on the partner and their background. And that helps also the advisors, but also connecting the advisors with previous advisors just to understand the partner better. So it's through observation most of the time, yes.
We also have a question about if we can talk a little bit about the online assignments approach and how they differ from the on-site work, so virtual assignments. I also think this will probably be our last question because we have about 4 minutes left. So just to let you know.
I don't think online assignments are very different. I think the only difference is that in this case, you're not seeing the person. So sometimes your understanding of their person and who they are and what they do might be limited to what they're telling you over the screen. But having said that, I think you can, if you're intentional, you can build a serious relationship with a partner. And the good thing is that with online assignments, you can have an assignment for as long as over a 6-month period. And if you're spending 1 hour with somebody a week over a 6-month period, you can have a better understanding of what they do and know how you can support them better. I've had partners that have had virtual assignments with partners and they've gone to Canada to look for them. And now they are like, the best of friends. So it's not very different. I think one of the things that, as I'm growing, I'm finding is when you meet anybody, irrespective of the background they've come from, just treat the person the way you wish to be treated, whether it's online or in person. Just treat people the way you expect to be treated. And you never know how those relationships can turn out. The only thing I find with virtual assignments is that sometimes, both advisors and partners do get busy. And so at some point they lose their motivation to continue. So we try not to encourage virtual assignments to drag on for so long. Having said that, we always try and prompt advisors or prompt partners that you have a meeting today with advisor. If you're having challenges or you're feeling demotivated, or if for whatever reason you are not responding as expected, let us know so that if there are issues, we can resolve them quickly. But by and large, I've seen advisors have relationships with partners way beyond the way that the duration of the assignments. I think I have been lucky in Ghana because I've also been intentional in the way I select partners, because I know what it takes for an assignment to happen and the cost involved. And so if I'm selecting a partner, I'm intentional about the partner I'm selecting, and I'm always ensuring that, assignments run smoothly. If I have the slightest doubt, we will just put the assignment on hold until the partner is ready so that you don't waste anybody's time. Thank you very much.
And we have about a minute, so I think we'll stop now. And thank you everyone so much for participating, for joining. I want to thank our amazing panel. They did great, and I am so happy I was able to be a part of this. I think like the main takeaways, like I thought of from listening to everyone is again the importance of respect, building relationships, listening, being able to adapt, and of course our in-country teams who are always there to assist. They are there to help you. Your VSOs are also there to help you, but the in-country team, like they are there for when you have work with a partner. So yeah, I want to again thank you all so much. And especially with the time difference for everyone. I hope you all have an amazing day. Moving forward after this, participants, you will, attendees, sorry, you will be receiving an email that will also include a recording of this information session, this webinar, as well as a survey that we would love for you to respond to fill out. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.